Tapping in.
Are we live?
Speaking of matters and keeping the show black and whatnot, the stumble upon topic for today is we're back at Tesla, Miles. We're back at Tesla. Um, Tesla employees allege widespread racism on the factory floor. This is over 100 employees in Tesla have come together to issue a lawsuit. More than 100 former Tesla employees have signed statements alleging that Tesla discriminates against Black people and allows a racist environment in its factories. It's not the first such allegation against Tesla, but it's certainly the most sprawling. All told, about 120 people have requested the right to sue Tesla in California for discriminatory reasons related to race, national ancestry, skin color, gender, age, disability, or other factors related to family and medical leave, according to documents viewed by Protocol. 9 such claims have been thrown out for lack of evidence.
Ooh, 9 have already been thrown out for lack of evidence, man. Yeah. So I love that you said we're back, because this has been a longitudinal study on our part, right? We've been covering this story for a minute now. My guy, do we have the guy's name? The original guy who sued Tesla?
It's not Fremont Daltrey, but it's something close to that. We can get the name.
Sure. So we covered the one single employee actually was experiencing some discrimination and sued. And I remember the fact being a little bit surprised that he actually won, like, right, based on his allegations. But like, you know, not because I didn't think the allegations had merit, but because the system doesn't usually work out in our favor in that way, right? And so, but I remember both of us having that conversation and being they're predicting that more people at Tesla would have ruffled feathers about having the same experience, right? This didn't seem like an isolated incident.
It did not seem like an isolated incident, and it isn't the first time that this type of news has been coming out from Tesla, right? And I think in situations like this, it's always important to look at a bit of the history behind if an institution and if a whole institution is failing to protect a certain type of people, because also sexual harassment cases are a lot of the cases that are being filed against Tesla. So clearly there is a culture of harassment, right? So if you look back at, like, for instance, say the Rouge factories in the 1920s for Ford, right? When Ford was first making their Model Ts coming out in 1920s, the worst places to work in those factory spaces were the ones exclusively reserved for people of color. At a certain point in time, 50% of all the men in Detroit were employed in Ford factories and were delegated towards these more difficult work environments, right? Being paid 11% less than everybody else, even though they were doing the same type of work. And the culture of harassment essentially could, in the automobile industry could say to have started from there. And then you fast forward, you know, and now we're seeing the gentleman's name, Owen Diaz, who sued Tesla last year. We covered that. Check that out. $137 million, right? And we said if there's 137 million, definitely somebody else is going to come out about it. But it also means that there's truly a deeper level to things, right? And so you've seen from 2017, there's been numerous people that have sued Tesla for the same reasons. Some have settled, some haven't. It's clearly something that's prevalent in that space.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, and I think kind of begs the question, right? Do we think that this is a problem that you know, it's clearly not isolated within Tesla, right? So clearly it's a widespread problem that multiple people are now bringing forth this lawsuit. But do we think, like, that this can't be isolated to the automotive industry, right? I imagine that there are many industries that have a similar history, and I appreciate you bringing the history into it. Matter of fact, I know that there are lots of industries that have a similar history, right? Where that's been the norm for so long that we're only now just getting to the point where we're starting to correct the way that certain people are treated by default in certain spaces. And it calls, like, into question, like, how do you can't fix this with band-aid solutions, right? You can't, like, I'm glad that Mr. Diaz, and thank you, my dude, for finding his name, got $137 million, right? I'm very
It's a lot
glad.
of money.
I'm very glad that he did. But what do we put in place? Clearly, that settlement hasn't been done enough to change the culture of Tesla for the employees to feel like it's a safe environment for them, right? And so what does that look like?
I don't know. And we have a friend, right, that works on a factory floor of a large automobile manufacturing company, right? And in speaking with him, he's made evident that the pendulum of how to fix that issue of harassment and whatnot doesn't always line up in the middle. And usually you have protection of the employee that goes way too extreme to the point where efficiency becomes an issue, right? And so in this particular factory, and it's a major automobile factory, right? He was saying that they can measure the efficiency of their workers, and they're operating at 50% of their efficiency, and there's no recourse that can come back to them. So you're right, there is no like one band-aid to fix harassment, and maybe harassment and work efficiency might not seem correlated, but they are, in the same way that harassment is correlated to GDP, meaning that if you can solve there's a measurable amount of impact of increase in money that a country can make, the more women it can stop from having being exposed to gender-based violence. That's a calculable thing. So it's the same thing with efficiency, right? It's an oddly correlated thing, but you're right, there's usually no one band-aid over it.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that it applies to so many things, right? It applies to racial harassment, it applies to sexual harassment in the workplace. And it kind of begs the question, right? Like, these are things that aren't limited to the workplace, but that corporations, I think, and like HR departments, right, have the responsibility to, they have a role in ensuring that people are treated fairly within that space, right? And we have a responsibility as individuals to carry that standard beyond the workplace and address it in public, right? In our general day-to-day lives.
Yeah. Here's where because now we're talking about harassment and the harassment at the office, right? And harassment just in general. Recently, a South African podcaster, and we spoke about this in pre-production. A South African podcaster was interviewing Ari Lennox and asked her a very crude question about who she's sleeping with at the moment, instead of very crudely. And I won't say it because our biggest fans on this show is my mom. Hi, mom. Anyways, hi, Miles' mom.
Dude, I paused, so that they could like experience the high. They could take that in. That's real.
I wish we still had drops so that maybe like an applause for the moms. Can we still get drops on the show?
Yeah, well, StreamYard would let us share from any other application besides Chrome. Then yes, we could have drops. But it's not. I'm working on that, but it's not as easy as it once was. We've upgraded. We've changed some things. We made sacrifices.
Made sacrifices. But so on the same breath, Ari Lennox is being interviewed by a podcaster. This could be considered a place of work, and he asked her a very crude question, right? That is harassment. That is harassment, regardless of the fact that he said to have used her words and referring to something that she said. Like, that's still harassment.
Yeah, it's and it just kind of speaks to, and like we can kind of get deeper into that conversation if you want, but I'm still kind of looking at this big picture from the aspect of like how we treat each other, right? And it's like, I understand efficiency in the workplace, but to me, my thought is that it doesn't efficiency increase in whatever space, right? Aren't you more able to carry out whatever you're trying to accomplish if everybody feels safe doing that? If everybody is able to do that without having to look over their shoulder, right? And so I feel like it kind of speaks to our need to figure out how we reset standards, right? Reset agreements of what it means to occupy a space together, right? And I know that sounds a lot like really less tangible than things that typically govern corporate environments, especially. But you know what I mean? We have to do it, because how much efficiency are we losing from all the complaints people have to file, from all of these lawsuits, and from people generally not feeling safe, right, in the environments they're working in? What if we put more? I feel like if we put more emphasis on setting those standards and making sure that they're enforced, right? I'm not talking about more like little things that you have to look at, little program things from HR that people click through and emails that people can ignore. Like, you really have to set a standard that's enforced in the environment, right?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. And as somebody that like has employees, that's a culture, putting in culture, setting in principles and company ethics, mission statement, vision. What's the, like that's a skill on its own. That's a skill on its own, right? And
It's a skill, but it's also like, I feel like it's what we have to do, right? We have to embed that care for each other in not only the culture of our businesses, that's our responsibility as entrepreneurs, as bosses, right? Whatever you're the boss of out there, you should be working to incorporate that culture of empathy, right, into whatever structure that you have influence over. And we have to incorporate that into like general society too, bro. Like, that just has to be the bottom, like, and that is a huge lift from where we are right now. I'm not underestimating that, but like, that I feel like that's what has to happen, and that's how.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's exactly what needs to happen, and that's always been my biggest complaint of South Africa, my home country, right? I've always said that if we can just make our women feel secure, that could be one of the best countries in the world, dude. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that we're losing so much efficiency, we're losing so much opportunity and productivity from the sheer fear that women have to live in, right? And I'm not making this like a tirade about that specifically, but like, if it speaks towards what you're saying about changing the culture of how we see things. And I think we know what the world looks like when we are hurting it, right? We know what it looks like when we pollute our oceans. They're saying in 2025 there are going to be more weight of plastic in the ocean than there are animals in the ocean, right? The weight of plastic in the ocean is going to exceed that of the weight of all the animals in the ocean. That's a crazy statistic. We know what happens when we pollute the world like that. We know what happens when we when we invoke things that bring out climate change, when we're polluting haphazardly. But if the world reacts in a visceral way when we're hurting it, what does it look like when we're nurturing it, dude? What does that look like when we're healing, when we're actually setting the standard, this principle that you're saying, like in our work culture, in our homes, in our communities, in our cities? Like, what do we look like as a society when we realize we really are all working together for the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely much safer. It's definitely more peaceful. But what's unfortunate is I think that a lot of companies, especially in governments, aren't particularly moved by that argument, right? And as I look at what it takes to actually make structural change, what really continues to, like, I guess, be presented to me or like keep slapping me in the face is that you have to be able to explain it in cost, right? And things like this, things like Tesla being sued because of and employees being able to use that as a way to have a voice, right, is important. And the people who, as we say, as we open the show every day, right, the vulnerable are powerful, right? The vulnerable are powerful. Everybody who's being oppressed continues to lift up their voice so that we can, one, tax the people that are oppressing us, right, for real, in the form of lawsuits, in the form of reparations, right? But there's also presenting to these institutions like, you continue to pay a cost in both efficiency, in violence, in like terrible news media coverage, in scandal, because of your refusal to just treat everybody at a certain standard. And if you would actually just treat everybody at a certain standard, then those people would be able to really operate and flourish in the workplace, right? You also would like not have to deal with all these scandals and all these lawsuits and all this pressure, all these protests. That's and until we can quantify that and put it in dollars in their face, I feel like a lot of corporations and institutions aren't moved.
Yeah, which is why when you look at like the data science space and where things are going with ethical data, with impact measurement, there's a lot of data now moving towards trying to figure out how to quantify things of ethics like that, things that matter like that. So that's why it becomes That's why that's a plug on the low. They'll get it when they get it.
Hit them.
They'll get it when they get it. But
Can we give them anything?
coming soon.
Man, that's what
They gotta know
like.
They should know we're working. We're working.
Ah, man.
Nah, but in wrapping this portion of in wrapping up this particular topic at Tesla, what I found pretty interesting is that in 2017, when Tesla, they threw out a case of somebody who reported harassment. They threw the case out on the basis that, and I quote, the remarks of staff were consistent with lyrics and images commonly found in rap songs and frequently used in rap competition.
Wait. No. You're not telling me that they called this man a nigga and they said because they heard nigga in the song, they thought it was cool to call him a nigga. That's what
let me read it again a little bit more smooth this time. Quote. Racist slurs were not racist because they were consistent with lyrics and images commonly found in rap songs and freestyle rap competition. I love how Tesla is defending rap in this.
I don't think Tesla's defending rap at all. I think Tesla's using rap as a scapegoat to justify racism, which is
freestyle rap competition.
So, all right. So here's my beef with that, right? Like, is that rap doesn't?
That was a hot 16. That wasn't racist. That was just a hot 16,
bruh. But like, rap
is what they say.
And so this ties into like a bigger conversation about people's art, right? But like, just because Black people describe their experience doesn't mean that you have license to use their words against them, right? And we know that at a basic human level, right? Like, just because, like, dude, do we really have to explain why it's not okay to say nigga? Like, for white?
I mean, like, that there's how relevant is that conversation to be had? How do you what is your ethics with the word nigga?
My ethics with the word nigga is that, Black people have a very, I would say an irrefutable history, but they're trying to erase it by not with this what's it called in the schools, the civic action, the curriculum, the critical race theory. You ain't heard of that? You don't know what I'm talking about?
What's critical race theory?
Critical race theory is basically in schools, they're not allowing certain aspects of slavery and the history of the enslavement of Black people to be taught in schools because it puts white people in such a bad light. And they don't want white kids to grow up feeling like white people are evil, right? No cap.
Yo, his history just repeats itself.
No cap. So that's part of where was I going with this? What was we talking about? You was talking about lyrics, rap lyrics, right? So that history, whether they want to erase it or not, right, exists and is real and is a history that Black people are trying to come to terms with and are trying to overcome, and that are still owed parts of the system that continue to benefit off of disadvantaging and disinvesting in Black people and Black communities, right? And part of that is the word nigga. Part of that is part of of the culture that we have created to cope with the history of systemic racism in America is the word nigga. And white people should respect that. It's understood that if you are respectful of any aspect of that history as a white person, that you don't say nigga.
Is it just white, or because I know the lines definitely blur? And here goes another one, right? What should an African's relationship with that word be?
I don't know. It depends on what is. I that's actually, I don't think that's for me to determine, right? I would say that there's a certain inherent, like, you can't remove it from me. There's a certain bite to that word because of the history of that word when a white person says it. And not that I'm not uncomfortable when people of that aren't black, who I don't have a relationship with, say it. Sometimes it doesn't have that same feeling, and it doesn't often feel like it's coming from that same place. That's not me giving anybody license to say it. That's just me describing how I feel in general, right? So I personally am like, yo, I can understand because of the proximity to African American experience, because we're all black, right? There's a diasporic reality to this, right? But I can understand the proximity to the African American experience that some Latinx people have, right? That even some East Asian cultures have, right? Like even some South Asian cultures have, right? I can understand that, especially in the ways that we've been allotted certain parcels of land and over history and been put together and mashed together in cities, right? I can understand how some people grow up within a culture and feel like that's a part of their culture too. That's an argument for an individual basis, an individual scenario, individual person, right? But when white people say it, there's rarely a cultural justification that makes me feel okay with it.
I feel that.
But we said all that to say that there's a history there that should be respected, right? And so one, that makes it not okay for somebody at Tesla to say that we said nigga because he said nigga. No, it's different. It's different. You're not respecting that history. And also that history is a beautiful, beautiful part of that evolving mechanism to cope with the continuing oppression that Black people go through is hip hop, right? One that I love and that has saved my life many times over, right? And so when
hip hop saved your life,
big facts. And when hip hop, when you take that expression of trying to overcome and trying to explain our experience just to be able to stay sane in this country and throw it back in our face as evidence of who you believe us to be, that story is not for you to pick apart. That story is for you to hear and listen and learn from. That's it. Right?
Yeah. I feel that. The only thing that would really make me stop saying, and the reason I've slowed down in saying nigga as much is because I don't like it when I get to a place and people start putting on a black accent because they're speaking with me. And that's something that happens. And also the rate in which how liberal people feel saying nigga around me. I realized, I was like, why is it that more people say nigga every time I'm around? Yeah. You know what I mean? That means that I was too loose with it and I didn't like that. Not because I didn't like how it was received back. And I find it over here in the UK too sometimes, where I'll speak to somebody and then they throw on a black accent, start using slang or whatnot, which is a bit insulting because, like, on the opposite, if I came up to somebody who was like, hey bro, how's it, mate? Like, they'd be like, dude, that's not you.
Can I have a vulnerable moment with you though? Can I like
go ahead, bro. The vulnerable and powerful on this show. Get it off.
On this mug. Yo, like,
hey man,
do you not feel yourself at all kind of be like your speech pattern tugs toward like being like in it
while I've been here?
Yeah,
I know, because I'm not around people with cool enough slang to take from. But like if I was, I'm sure I'd code switch and acclimate to some innits and bib and some bruvs.
Yeah, I remember when I was there for 2 weeks, and by that second week, I was
you're looking for it though. You're looking for the pass. You're looking for the innit pass.
I don't know if I was looking.
You were shopping for new slang when you were in London.
But I was all right. Shopping for new slang is a very verbally slutty way to describe me, sir. I don't appreciate it.
So you can go show off to the homies back in Chicago some new slang.
Nah, but we took in it when we watched Top Boy, dude. We didn't wait for the actual experience to take that one. But real talk, like I definitely did feel like that cultural experience, like being there, and especially after that first week, was kind of like there was just like this when you're talking to somebody and you want them to understand you as well as possible. I don't know. I feel like part of me was like trying to convey it the way I was hearing it. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. That's just code switching. That's code switching,
But-
which is very different than
Yeah.
than accent masking. That's a whole different thing, and like accent imitation. Code switching, I think, is a like. For instance, if I'm in Chicago, my slang and patois is gonna slowly acclimate to there. When I'm in Soweto, my slang and diction is gonna acclimate to that space. When I'm here, you know what I mean? Same thing.
Yeah. But there's definitely a different cringeness to when you see the white person see you and then what up?
Nah, not a one. Dude,
Or there's a line of people, right? Handshake, hug, handshake, dap. Nah, bro.
When I got to Exeter, some young lady got my number and she kept on calling me dog. I didn't text her back. It's just like I left it on red. I was like, hell no.
You're always 7 years too late.
she called me dog like 3 times in a row. I was like, that's it.
Dude.
Yeah. White girl, no ways.
You don't want white people on your line. Don't call your black friends homie. You know what I mean? Don't dive right into that. You know.
Nah. The coolest thing you can be is yourself. And when we're being the best version of ourselves, what we do is give people information. We give people current news.